A foolish woman allows her emotions to control her. She reacts before thinking, speaks before listening, and lets temporary feelings dictate permanent decisions. She gets caught up in the heat of the moment, saying things she can't take back, doing things she'll regret later. She lashes out in anger, plays the victim in disappointment, or crumbles under pressure. But a wise woman, she moves differently. She understands that emotions are like the weather. They come and go, but she doesn't let a passing storm destroy everything she's built. She doesn't react, she responds. She takes a moment, a breath, a pause. She steps back before stepping forward. Now, some people mistake emotional control for suppression, but there's a difference between mastering your emotions and pretending they don't exist. A wise woman isn't cold, she's composed. She feels everything, but she's not ruled by anything. She doesn't let anger make her reckless, fear make her small, or sadness make her weak. She knows that emotions are powerful, but they are not the driver. They are passengers, and she stays in control of the wheel. We've all seen the damage that comes from the lack of emotional discipline. How many relationships have been destroyed because someone couldn't control their tongue? How many opportunities have been lost because someone let pride or insecurity speak for them? How many times has regret followed an emotional outburst that could have been avoided with just a little patience? See, a foolish woman blames the world for how she feels, like everyone else is responsible for her emotions. She says, "They made me mad, they hurt me, they made me act this way." But a wise woman, she owns her emotions. She understands that no one has the power to control how she feels unless she gives it to them. She chooses her battles wisely, knows when to walk away, and knows when to stand firm. She is not easily provoked, not easily shaken. She carries herself with grace, with wisdom, with power. And because of that, she commands respect without ever having to demand it. The question is, are you letting your emotions control you, or are you the one in control? A foolish woman stays the same. Year after year, she repeats the same mistakes, faces the same problems, and wonders why nothing in her life is changing. She resists growth, avoids challenges, and stays in her comfort zone because it feels safe. But a wise woman, she understands that comfort is the enemy of progress. She knows that if she wants more out of life, she has to become more. She reads, she learns, she asks questions, she seeks wisdom. She understands that knowledge is power, but applied knowledge, that's transformation. Growth isn't always easy, it's uncomfortable. It forces you to confront your flaws, your weaknesses, your blind spots. And that's exactly why a foolish woman runs from it. She doesn't want to hear the truth if it challenges the way she sees herself. She rejects correction, gets defensive when someone points out an area she could improve. She surrounds herself with people who tell her what she wants to hear, not what she needs to hear. And because of that, she stays stuck, trapped in the same patterns, the same cycles, the same excuses. See, life will teach you lessons, whether you're ready for them or not. But a wise woman doesn't wait for pain to be her only teacher. She doesn't wait until she loses everything before she realizes she needs to change. She seeks wisdom before life forces it on her. She humbles herself enough to say, "I don't know everything, but I'm willing to learn." She asks herself, "What can I do better? What can I change? How can I grow?" And most importantly, she takes action. Because wisdom without action is just potential, wasted. If you're not growing, you're declining. There is no standing still. The world moves, time moves, and if you refuse to move with it, you'll find yourself left behind. Every day is an opportunity to become better, to stretch your mind, to develop new skills, to elevate your thinking. And the moment you stop growing is the moment you start settling. So ask yourself, are you evolving or are you just existing? A foolish woman craves validation. She needs people to like her, to approve of her, to tell her she's enough. She bends, she shifts, she molds herself into whatever she thinks will get her accepted. She will lower her standards just to be chosen, silence her voice just to be liked, and betray herself just to fit in. But a wise woman? She doesn't chase validation, she carries self-respect. She doesn't beg for a seat at the table, she builds her own. See, when you don't know your worth, you'll settle for anything. You'll tolerate disrespect, you'll entertain nonsense, you'll cling to relationships that drain you just because you're afraid of being alone. A foolish woman mistakes attention for love, flattery for value, and popularity for purpose. She lets social media, opinions, and fleeting compliments define who she is. But a wise woman? She doesn't need the world to clap for her to know she's doing something right. She understands that real confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to be announced. It doesn't need approval. It just is. You ever notice how the people who need validation the most are the ones who never feel like they have enough of it? That's because external approval is a thirst that can never be quenched. The moment you start living for other people's applause, you become a puppet, and your strings are in their hands. But when you stand firm in who you are, when you know your value, when you move with self-respect, you become untouchable. No one can dangle their approval over your head like a prize because you're already complete without it. A wise woman isn't arrogant. She's secure. She listens to feedback, but she doesn't live for it. She welcomes love, but she doesn't beg for it. She walks away from anything that requires her to shrink herself, dim her light, or compromise her dignity. She knows her presence is a privilege, and if someone can't see that, it's their loss. So ask yourself, are you chasing approval, or are you standing in your worth? A foolish woman ignores her finances. She spends without thinking, saves without intention, if she saves at all, and believes that money is someone else's responsibility. Maybe she assumes a partner will take care of it, or she thinks somehow it'll just work itself out. But a wise woman knows that financial independence isn't just about having money. It's about having choices. It's about freedom, security, and the ability to walk away from anything or anyone that doesn't serve her without fearing what comes next. Money is a tool, and like any tool, you have to know how to use it. A foolish woman avoids learning about finances because it seems intimidating or boring, or she thinks it's not her problem to handle. But ignorance is not bliss when it comes to money. Ignorance is vulnerability, and the world will take advantage of that vulnerability every chance it gets. A wise woman takes the time to understand her finances, to budget, to plan, to invest. She educates herself so that she's not just working for her money, but her money is also working for her. Think about this. How many people stay in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, or situations that compromise their integrity because they feel trapped financially? That's not freedom. That's bondage. A wise woman refuses to put herself in a position where she has no options. She doesn't depend on someone else's generosity for her survival. She builds her own wealth, her own safety net, her own empire, no matter how big or small. Now, this isn't about greed or materialism, it's about responsibility. It's about honoring the life you've been given and using your resources wisely. It's about understanding that money amplifies who you are. If you're generous, it allows you to give more. If you're ambitious, it allows you to achieve more. If you're wise, it allows you to plan more. A foolish woman lets money control her, stress her, and dictate her life. A wise woman controls her money, manages her stress, and dictates her own terms. So ask yourself, are you taking charge of your financial future, or are you leaving it up to chance? How does that flow? Anything you'd like to tweak or add? 2. A foolish woman surrounds herself with negativity. She entertains gossip, feeds off drama, and keeps toxic people in her life just because they're familiar. She mistakes chaos for excitement, thinks that tearing others down will somehow lift her up, and stays in relationships that drain her because she's afraid to be alone. But a wise woman, she guards her space like her future depends on it, because it does. Now, she understands that the people she allows in her life influence her thoughts, her energy, and her direction. She doesn't waste time on meaningless drama because she's too focused on building something real. Some people live for gossip. They sit around dissecting other people's lives, judging, criticizing, whispering behind backs like it's a sport. But what they don't realize is that the more time they spend talking about other people, the less time they spend working on themselves. A wise woman knows that gossip is a distraction, and she refuses to let her energy be consumed by things that don't serve her. She speaks with purpose, moves with intention, and surrounds herself with people who do the same. And then there are relationships, friendships, partnerships, even family ties that do nothing but drain and destroy. A foolish woman holds on to toxic connections out of fear of letting go, fear of being alone, fear of change. She makes excuses for bad behavior, justifies disrespect, and convinces herself that things will get better when all the signs say otherwise. But a wise woman knows that holding on to the wrong people will keep her from becoming the right version of herself. She's not afraid to walk away from those who don't value her. She understands that love without respect isn't love at all, and loyalty to dysfunction is not a virtue, it's a weakness. Your circle is either pushing you forward or holding you back. The people you talk to every day, the conversations you entertain, the energy you absorb, it all shapes you. A wise woman chooses wisely. She builds relationships that inspire her, friendships that uplift her, and a life that reflects the kind of person she wants to be. She refuses to waste another minute in spaces that don't align with her growth. So ask yourself, are you surrounded by people who sharpen you, or are you just keeping company out of habit? A foolish woman thinks only about today. She makes decisions based on how she feels in the moment without considering how they'll affect her future. She spends recklessly, loves carelessly, and moves blindly, hoping everything will somehow work out. She reacts instead of strategizing, chooses comfort over discipline, and ignores warning signs because she doesn't want to deal with hard truths. She sees beyond the present. She plays the long game. She understands that every choice, no matter how small, creates a ripple effect that shapes her future. You ever see someone make the same mistake over and over and still wonder why their life isn't changing? That's what happens when you don't think ahead. A foolish woman ignores consequences until they're staring her in the face. She doesn't plan, doesn't prepare, and then acts surprised when things fall apart. But a wise woman, she moves differently. She doesn't just ask, what do I want right now? She asks, will this serve me later? Will this build me or break me? Will I look back at this decision with pride or regret? She understands that short-term pleasure is never worth long-term pain. Patience and discipline separate the foolish from the wise. A foolish woman wants instant results, quick money, fast love, overnight success. But she's not willing to do the work. She takes shortcuts, settles for less, and wonders why she keeps coming up short. But a wise woman trusts the process. She knows that anything worth having requires effort, sacrifice, and persistence. She's willing to put in the work today so she can reap the rewards tomorrow. She doesn't make decisions based on impulse. She makes them based on vision. So ask yourself, are you thinking ahead, or are you just hoping everything works out?